talking on most of it, but I think everyone likes to see the pictures, right? So see what the cottages look like. So we'll just kind of scroll through it a little bit here. We just put some notes about who we are. We're investors from Kitchener. I started investing in 2013. Chelsea and I met in 2016. I run the Kyle Ford mortgage team at Mortgage Alliance, and Chelsea is...
I have a home staging and an interior design business as well, which is called Wild Orchid Staging and Design. Yeah,
so we started, so I started investing in 2013. I've done a broad scope of investing, pre-construction condos, single family rentals, got into BRRRRing multifamily, big building BRRRRs. I broker a ton of private money, and most recently we've got into land development. We're doing some pretty large projects in the Hamilton and Ancaster area. One of the things that I always was passionate about in real estate, and one of my whys of why I wanted to invest in real estate, was I always wanted a cottage. So in 2016, an opportunity came to me, which was a single family cottage up in Wyerton. It was dealing directly with the seller, and we had the opportunity to negotiate a 90% vendor take-back mortgage. So for anyone who's new in real estate, that means the seller actually gives us the financing. So when I bought that property, I wasn't running the same analysis that I run on my other properties. I just wanted to cover my expenses and own a cottage. It wasn't an investment thing for me. I wasn't running the numbers super hardcore. I just wanted to know that I could cover the expenses, and if I could get some free time at the cottage, I thought that would be great. So what I classified that as was a lifestyle investment at the time. So from there, what started off as a lifestyle investment, when I was managing the properties, our reviews weren't very good. I'm not as, for me, a cottage was, who's got the beer, who's got the burgers, and let's go have fun. So once Chelsea got involved, our reviews started going up, and the cottage started being rented a lot, to the point where we didn't get to really enjoy it anymore because it was rented so much. So Chelsea and I made the decision a couple of years later to buy our first place in Grand Bend. That was in 2018. We've kind of got a type of property that we like. I applied the same strategy that was in our BRRRR models in apartment buildings, and applied that to cottages. So you can see it's not my design touches. That's where Chelsea comes in and makes them look pretty. When we talk about marketing on cottages a little bit later, the one thing we say all the time is, a lot of people tell us like, oh, we want a rustic cottage experience, like, campfires and that type of stuff. And I believe a lot of people do want that. But in our experience, what we found is people want stuff that looks really pretty and has air conditioning and stainless steel appliances and, all the bells and whistles. So we really, renovate these properties to a higher scale. So from here, you're going to see this as a continuing problem as we kind of go here. The cottage, we started using it as our own and then renting it out. And then it was rented out too much that we didn't get to use it enough on our own. And we kind of realized that we were onto something here, and that this was a pretty lucrative business. I definitely want to use that terminology throughout this, which is business, because what I found is some real estate investing can be quite passive. In our experience, this is operating a business, not just our investment is the underlying real estate. So this was cottage number 2. We want to talk a little bit, Jen asked me to talk a little bit about financing cottages. And specifically, I'm going to talk about financing cottages and financing rental cottages. So you're going to see as we kind of go through this, the bulk of our stuff that we're doing is we're acquiring with private money and then refinancing with a conventional lender in the back end. For some of you who are maybe getting started and just want to buy your first cottage, you might be able to take advantage of some financing options that you might not know are available. The first one is you can purchase a cottage as your secondary home with 5% down. So this can't be a full-time rental. You can't use any rental income to qualify for. This is, you can purchase a cottage as your secondary home with 5% down, and 5% down on the first 500 and 10% down on the next 500 up to $1 million. So that's the 5% down cottage program, as well as you can also just purchase a cottage as a second home with 20% down, or you can purchase a cottage as a rental property with 20% down. The key to this is when you're qualifying and purchasing these properties, they can't be, the rental income that you use is not going to be short-term rental income. It's market rent income. So what that means is, on average, in the summertime, we're getting about $3,500 a week for some of our nicer cottages, where the bank is going to only use about $2,500 a month as our income that they allow us to use to qualify. So what we found in the cottages is we're struggling to get to 80% loan to value on refis. We're landing in the 70-75% range. So just to set a realistic expectation for people who are going to try to scale up in this business, if you're using the market rent appraisals, you're probably not going to get the same loan to value you could get if it's income qualified, which means qualified off your own personal income. So that's a little bit about the financing, and I hope this is okay. What we kind of did here is we took the information that Jen wanted us to share tonight, and we kind of just built it into our story. That way we can show lots of cool pictures and lots of stuff of what we've done, and but at the same time help educate and share. So from here, that's just more pictures of the Scoot Shack. Just so you know, Scoot is our dog. Do you want to talk a little bit about branding, babe?
Yeah, so I was going to go into this a little bit later, but one of the things that we really focus on with our cottage rentals, because we look at it as a business, branding and marketing obviously is a huge part of that. And we actually focus on branding each cottage, and that means naming it something. So when the cottage is not renovated, it kind of has like a boring kind of generic name like Beachfront Escape, right? And then as soon as it's renovated, we come up with something really like almost like catchy, funny, something that people would remember. And it actually seems to work from a marketing perspective, because we have people contact us. Oh yeah, I heard about like Scoot Shack. So Scoot's our dog. We named our first cottage after our dog, and people remember it. It's just something that sticks in their head, and they remember, oh yeah, I rented the Lost Lobster because it was a funny name, and they remember it. So it's just kind of a way for us to get people to remember. And yeah, that's just kind of one piece of the marketing, but yeah, I'll go into some of it later.
What we find is we have people saying, oh, so I stayed at Scoot Shack the one time, but I really want to go to the Lost Lobster now. So it's kind of a fun way just to brand the cottages. So in 2020, I guess, which is in the last, I'm going to say, end of 2019, we really scaled up in the cottage rental business. Pre-COVID, we were already booking. We were full in the summer. So my mentality is if I can be full in the summer, that covers all my expenses for the year. So anything else is cash flow to me. So when I'm booked up for summer already, and when we're turning people down left, right, and center, it makes sense to me to acquire another asset and fill it up and own another asset that's paid for by 12 weeks of summer. I'm going to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. A lot of people think that there's only 8, maybe 9 prime weeks. In our experience, we have 12 prime weeks of summer. That's from about June 15th to September 15th. Those are going to be your prime time weeks. One of the rules that we use in our business is the 12 prime weeks must cover pity. So 12 prime weeks must cover principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So as long as we're covering pity in 12 weeks, we know that the income we can generate the rest of the year is going to cover any other expenses as well as significant cash flow. So these are a few properties that we purchased in 2020. You can see kind of fun names: Afternoon Delight, the Lost Lobster, the Lazy Bear.
Yeah. So the next, do you want to go over that?
Yeah. So this is one we did last year. High Level, we acquired with a private lender for $777. We bought these 2 cottages that were side by side. Off the top of my head, I think we spent about $220,000 in renovations. So we were into them for $1 million. 90 days after we purchased them, they appraised for 1.2. So did a BRRRR on it with the rental income that we already had for the summer before they were even rented. We were able to get all of our cash back out of that deal in about 120, 130 days. So that was a good one. And same kind of thing. We're updating them. Before's on the top, after's on the bottom. Chelsea's putting her magic touch into these things.
The other thing too that to keep in mind when we're doing the renovations on these cottages, not only is it the aesthetic and having these beautiful pictures and something that would draw attention, but we're also renovating thinking of, so this is a perfect example actually in this photo here. We're creating more sleeping spaces to be able to sleep more people, because the more people we can sleep, the more money we can get for the cottages. So this one, for example, like as you can see in the before, it was one big master bedroom that really only slept 2 people because there's one bed. So we actually put up some walls creatively in that space and created actually 3 separate living or sleeping spaces up there. So now we turned a space that would sleep 2 into something that could sleep actually
We're 10.
Probably 10 with the bunk beds we put.
6 to 10 depending.
Yeah, so that's another thing to keep in mind when we're doing the renovations. It's not just to make it look pretty, but more functional as a cottage.
This is another one that we purchased. Another creative strategy you did to get into the market, and this is one of the things in today's craziness where you might be able to win on terms as opposed to price. So for this one, when this property came up, we had already owned 16 and 17 Pine Street in Grand Bend, and this was 18 Pine Street. So if you will, that we had Boardwalk and Park Place, and we wanted the monopoly. So when it came up, we weren't in a great buying position. We didn't necessarily want to buy it at that point. So what we did is we found out that the sellers were a big family who didn't really want to sell, but kind of had to sell. So we structured it as a 1-year close. So that gave everyone a chance to have a last weekend at the cottage, and the family all got to enjoy it one last time. And then we were able to close on it later, which worked out better for us, but it allowed the seller to get what they wanted, and it bought us the time we needed to buy it. So this was another kind of fun one. We own the property across the road, and if you look in the picture in the bottom, when we bought this property, there was full trees blocking the lakefront view. There was tons of trees. So once we were firm on the property and the deal was firm, we went across the road and cut all the trees down. So we turned this property into a lake view, which increases the value. So thought that was kind of a cool strategy.
Yeah, and one of the things to keep in mind too when you're looking through all of these cottages is it's hard to see where they are geographically, but they're all within a couple minutes walk of each other. And from a business perspective, that made so much more sense because it allowed us to hire, cleaners that can do multiple cottages at once. And it also, if we're here, then we can keep an eye on everything. If we had cottages in all different locations, it would be really hard to run a business that way. And this way we can keep an eye on things and it's easier to manage. So these are all within the same small, I don't know, like how
couple blocks.
A couple blocks, yeah.
So sorry. How do I go back? Okay, this is another. So what we've kind of moved into some more creative stuff in the cottage space. Not only do we want to find properties that cash flow, just to put it into perspective, we'll talk about it a little bit more. What I'm finding when I have people approaching me for cottages on the mortgage side and they're showing me their numbers, people are grossly underestimating what they can generate in winter revenue. We'll talk to you about some of the strategies that we use in the winter to maximize that. But one of the other things that we've started to focus on is buying bigger lot cottages where we can sever off additional properties. So this is the Lazy Bear. This is the one property that we did. We're able to do a full BRRRR on this in about 6 months worth of renovations, as well as slice off a prime lot in the core of downtown Grand Bend. So you can see this is a rendering in the bottom left of what we're going to build on that lot. So same thing in that house that we're building. It's going to be a 7-bed, 4.5 bath. More beds, more heads, more beds, more profit. That's generally what we're going to be looking for. And I'll show you one more deal. This was this is another creative financing strategy that we did. There was a question in the Q&A I saw, how many cottages can you buy as your second home? The answer is one. You can only have one second home. So in terms of scaling up in the cottage business, you need to have creative financing techniques. This is a property that we purchased 2.5 years ago. It was a $1.15 million purchase, and we negotiated $1 million vendor take back mortgage on that. 2.5 years later, this is the 4-unit beachfront condo that we're proposing to develop on the property right now. So obviously going from we didn't show pictures of this cottage because it's pretty scary.
We call it the haunted house.
Yeah, it's not our nicest cottage right now, but it's going to be. So yeah, this is a section that we definitely wanted to spend some time out on. One thing that I think really shocks a lot of people is less than 20% of our bookings are from Airbnb or any other VRBO home away. This is really where Chelsea does the marketing on it, and I'll let you kind of take it.
Yeah, so I do a lot of marketing just with actually free platforms. So Facebook Marketplace, buy and sell groups. There's an Ontario Cottages for Rent group. So that's just people will join it and they're looking for the cottage already. So you can post your properties on there. And that is honestly where I get the majority of our business. I have a website so I can send people all the information. I also now have a booking platform on that website. So it's almost hands off sometimes. But people do like that one-on-one personal experience, and they like to chat with me about the cottages and figure out which one suits them best. So kind of like a little like personal cottage matchmaker for people. And that seems to go really well. The best part about it in terms of our business, because we do have so many properties, is I can use that to cross sell. So instead of somebody just going on Airbnb, finding one property that they like, and then realizing it's booked, they'll go to somebody else's property. Whereas with Facebook Marketplace buy and sell groups, that type of thing, I can sell them another cottage that I may have available for those dates that they were looking for. So it allows me to keep that business in our business, and also have repeat bookings as well. So again, we put together a nice website that has a good booking platform on it, which took quite a while, but it's a nice platform now. And yeah, we talked about the naming the cottages.
And just to jump in here, the one thing that we really like from the not being on Airbnb is we're controlling our booking periods. What that means is in our 12 prime weeks, you can only rent Friday to Friday, which means in terms of managing the cleaners and turnover and maintenance, it's all on one day. So we're able, now when we started, we were hiring independent cleaners and independent maintenance people, but we've been able to kind of bring that in-house and hire staff to take care of it. But the other thing that does is it mitigates our vacancy. So in the 12 prime weeks, we only do Friday to Friday. For the rest of the year, we do Friday to Monday, Monday to Friday, or Friday to Friday. So you can still book Friday to Friday, or you could book a weekend period or a weekly period. What Chelsea's able to do then is sell like promotional time. So if we have a vacancy, we'll give you an example. In January, we were looking like we were going to be not a lot of bookings. So what we did is we said every booking period in January was going to be $500, which means it was $500 for a weekend in January, or $500 for a Monday to Friday in January. In a month, that's 8 booking periods, which is $4,000 of gross revenue. So when you times that by 4 months in the off season, and your expenses are being covered in the prime season, we're talking about $16,000 in cash flow per cottage, just on doing those $500 specials. So we're getting a lot more than 500 for a lot of those weekends now. But by setting the booking periods, we create promotional pricing, and we're also mitigating vacancy. We don't have somebody who wants to check in on a Saturday and leave on a Wednesday. Next booking's not till Friday. And we do sometimes get some pushback from some guests saying, well, I don't need the Sunday night. But we're able to sell it more as, hey, you can stay late on Sunday. You don't have to check out at 11. You can stay the whole day, and it's the same price either way. And most people like that. So, how am I doing on time here, Jen? How are we doing? Or Corey?
You are totally fine. It's only 7:30, so like, yeah, keep going. No worries.
Great.
Cool. So yeah, one of the things that we really wanted to focus on, especially this year, because we have so many properties, was how do we get, minimize any of that off-season vacancy. So I would say the off-season for us would be anywhere from November to April, end of April would be what I would consider an off-season, because the weather is not nearly as nice. And why do people want to go hang out at the beach when it's cold? This year with COVID, obviously there was a lot more popularity than there normally is because nobody could travel anywhere. So we did quite well when we were allowed to rent this past winter, but we really wanted to make sure that we had zero vacancy when we were allowed to rent. So what we decided to do is put hot tubs in all of these cottages, and that just gave people something to do. And it really worked very well because when we were allowed to rent, we had zero vacancy. November, December, January, February, March, like whatever months we were allowed to rent.
And when we say zero vacancy, we mean like Monday to Friday in the third week of January, we had 7 cottages booked full. Yeah. It was absolutely insane. And I want to touch on the cottage thing because everyone who buys, the hot tub thing. Anyone who's going to buy a cottage asks me, should I buy a hot tub? And I give them the same answer every time. You're going to absolutely hate it. It's going to be a pain in your butt. It's going to cost you a lot of money to maintain, but without a doubt, you have to have it. You have to have it for the winter rentals. We had the one cottage that we couldn't get a hot tub, COVID, that we couldn't get. That was the only cottage that we were having vacancy at. Every other cottage was booked absolutely solid. So it really is a must. Now we're working on some promotional stuff. We're trying to work with restaurants to try to create like retreats and getaways. Like you can, honeymoon special, you get a gift card to a local restaurant. So that's the type of cross branding we're trying to do. In the small towns, it's really, really good to have those relationships. I don't know. Okay. I guess I just wanted to, before we get into this, I wanted to talk a little bit about the COVID rules and how that's affecting short-term rentals. It's certainly been a challenge this year. We fully shut down the business one time during the first COVID shutdown. We canceled all of our bookings. Nobody was allowed. We were trying to do our part to help get through this. The second time there was a lockdown, what we did is we actually offered monthly specials. So that means you could come to the cottage for a month in the winter. We made strict rules like, quarantine when you get there, bring your own groceries, don't be part of the problem kind of thing. But we did a monthly rental. Now we're going into the third lockdown, and we've shut our business down again to anyone who's not in need of emergency housing. So you are still allowed to rent cottages for people in need of emergency housing. We've adjusted our pricing to accommodate it because they don't pay as much as vacationers. But we're still finding that we're running about 50% occupancy right now of people who need housing. They've sold their house. Their closing dates don't line up. Somebody was exposed to COVID near them and they need to leave their house. So, or they want to quarantine when they get home. Is there anything
construction, like if there's a lot of construction going on at people's houses and they can't live there with their kids. So I'm finding that the time that they're staying is longer than normally would be. Like they're not just coming for a weekend, they're coming for a little bit longer. But yeah, we're still getting bookings and people that need housing, and there tends to be a little bit more like local people, which isn't a problem at all. So it's just not quite the same as what we're used to, but we're just going with it and doing what we can and hopefully helping people as well at the same time. So
in terms of expenses management, I mean, we're using the spreadsheets, Google Drive. We're pretty much centralizing most of our businesses in that stuff in the Drive. Just to talk about the cleaning, we did independent contractors for cleaning for a long time, and for most of you guys who are just getting started in the cottage rental business, that's absolutely what you should do. Find a cleaner, overpay them, pay them more than you think a cleaning job should cost, because that person is going to become such a reliable resource for you. Chelsea talked in the beginning about how we've centralized our business in Grand Bend, so it can be remote or it can be easier to manage. But we do want to get into more remote investing. We want to buy in the Caribbean, and we're going to be managing from a distance again. And the way we're going to start that is with independent contractors, cleaners, handy people, people that we trust. We're going to pay them well to care about our properties. And then once we establish the business in that area, we're going to do what we did here, which is bring it in-house. So it's much cheaper when you have cleaners on staff versus independent contractors. But for 1 to 3 cottages, just go ICs for your cleaners.
Yeah, and then the point about damage deposits there as well. We also rely on the cleaners to ensure, or the cleaners and our maintenance people to ensure that the cottage is in good condition when after a guest checks out. And I guess that's a question that we get quite often is like, what do you do when somebody leaves the cottage in shambles or they leave garbage everywhere or whatever it is? We are very upfront with our guests that if they don't follow all of the rules and they don't complete their checklist when they leave and that type of thing, we will take your damage deposit. So we do take a $500 refundable damage deposit. There's probably only been really a handful of times that we've had to take that full amount.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll take, if they've just broke a glass, maybe we charge $10 or something like that. But it just allows us to ensure that any damage is covered if something bad happens.
Yep. And I call them Chelsea's passive aggressive signs. But we have signage all over the house. It's all done really nice and pretty. That's why I call them passive aggressive. But it's basically saying, like, these are the rules. It's clear as day. Here's a reminder. Like some of our one property, we had a pretty high-end couch in the property. And we put a sign in a nice frame right there that says no food or drinks on the couch. Any damage, your full deposit will be taken. And we had one person say, well, that sign was pretty aggressive. Well, it is what it is. We just want to be clear about what our expectations are. And I think what we find is most of our guests appreciate it. They know exactly what the rules are. There's clear instruction. They know if they break a rule, they've signed a contract, they put money down, and we've always been reasonable people with people. As Chelsea mentioned, I can't think of more than 2 or 3 times that we've taken the full $500. A couple times we've had to take 100 or 200 for a broken something. So the professional cottage check-in, that's really helpful in terms of easier management for you. If you're self-managing, spend the time with a good FAQ. Send it to people in advance. What we find is if we don't send things to people in advance, a week before they start to get anxious and they start messaging a bunch of questions, and it becomes, you feel like a hotel concierge. So if you really spend the time to do a good FAQ, a good pre-check-in, a good check-in, a good post-checkout, or a good checkout and post-checkout, what you're going to find is people are going to understand what's going on, and it's going to be less management for you.
One of the things that I've realized in doing all this and getting the instructions together and making sure that everyone has all the information is spend a couple nights in the cottage yourself. Look and see what would a guest, in a guest perspective, what would they want to see or what would they want to know. Sometimes it's sometimes a little bit cheesy, but you have to put labels on things, unfortunately, because the light switch doesn't quite work properly, or this needs to be done, or whatever it is. And I think the more clear you are with people, the better the guest experience is, and therefore the better the reviews and so on. So my suggestion would be just to stay in the cottage.
Yep. That's kind of our spiel. Simply Paradise Furnished Rentals.com, Simply Paradise FR.com. Check out our website if you're interested. And if you have any questions on mortgages, don't hesitate to reach out.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Wow, that was a ton of information there. I'm going to ask everyone if you could please, if you're interested, take a screenshot right now so that you can see their contact information. Let's see. I'm going to. Are you still the host there, Kyle, or did you make me the host?
There you go. I think you're okay there.
Wonderful. Awesome. Okay. So I am going to first of all, that was amazing. So much information and lots of questions came in. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go through them here. Okay, so you answered that first one, how many you can purchase as a second.
Yep. I lost you, Jen.
Oh, all good. So Jen, if your internet is down, I can take over here. So oh, Jen, are you back?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Okay, I am going to, how do I make you the host? Just in case, because I am in the country. Just in case my internet goes out here. I don't see how I'm able to do that.
Yeah, try to find me in the panelists and see if there's an option to do that.
I'm not seeing one here. Okay. Let's see. Let's keep going on with these questions here. So Francis is saying, with the state of the real estate market anywhere in since 2020, is there money in the buy when you pick up these properties? Are you purchasing them off market or retail?
I think we bought 8 of the 11 off market, 3 on market. So we're predominantly buying off market. That's my full. I don't buy any real estate unless I'm making money on the buy. That's pretty much my rule for anything that we do. Though some of the cottages are cottages that we've lived in and are staying in. Everything. It's a business for us where it's always about making money on the buy. Not saying you can't find good deals on the market still. I'm sure they're out there. Focus on terms. Not every seller is going to want the top dollar. There's massive capital gains on selling a second residence. So VTVs could be attractive, longer closings, allowing them. This is an interest. We've offered this a couple times. No one's taken up on this, but we've offered them to be able to rent the cottage back from us from 1 week every year. So focus if you're buying on market and it's a tough market, see if you can find out what that seller's needs are and tailor your offer to that.
Great tips. That's awesome. Actually, I had a quick question about where you're purchasing your properties. Are all of your properties lakeshore, or do you have some offshore? And what is it better to spend more to be on the water, or is it maybe better to spend a little bit less and be near the water?
So I'm going to say in Grand Bend is a booming market right now. It's getting a lot of national and even international attention. So lakefront here is basically starting at $2 million now. Your numbers probably aren't going to work very well on a $2 million property. I might be answering a question that's a little bit farther down. We've been finding our sweet spot is buying in the 400 to 600 range, spending 100 to 200 on a rehab, and then hitting that $8 to $1 million after repair or ARV number. What we will tell you is outside of Grand Bend, there is the number one demand that people are looking for is shallow, sandy, gradual entry. So if you can find a cottage that's 2 hours from Toronto, with a shallow, sandy entry, you're going to have a ton of demand for that property. I'm also going to answer another question about winterize. That's in the same answer. People don't, in our experiences, people don't want 3 season. They don't want a cabiny experience. If you want top dollar for these properties and generating the type of revenue we're talking about, all of our cottages are houses. They're forced air gas, fully insulated, fully winterized. We have snow removal in the winter. They're houses. So.
Awesome. So Luke's asking, do you self-manage all of your cottages then, hosting and cleaning, that sort of thing?
Yep. So yep. Pretty
Okay.
much. I don't clean. We hire the cleaners to go and do that, but I would prepare like a cleaning schedule for them. And,
right.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So sorry to cut you off there. I'm curious, how much time then would you say per property are you having to spend to manage the rentals, manage the cleaners, that sort of thing?
So, well, I used to do this basically all by myself, almost as a full-time job. We've recently hired somebody to help with the administrative part of it. So answering the questions, getting out rental contracts, making sure all of our calendars are correct and that type of thing. So per property, I wouldn't even know like how to like.
It was at this point for us right now, we have 11 cottages. We also just bought a motel, so that we're doing a full renovation on as well, which is going to be pretty cool. So we have 4 full-time people working for us in this business now, 2 maintenance guys, operations and administrative, and then we have 3 cleaners, part-time cleaners as well. So technically 7 people working for us full-time now. So, but to go back to, if you just want to buy your first cottage, when I was doing my first one, it was me. I was a couple hours a week kind of doing it, answering the phones on the thing that I didn't like about the self-managing, and I'll be fully upfront about this, is Friday nights suck. Everybody's checking in, and they go, because they're scared of their damage deposit, they run around the cottage and find anything that's wrong with it. And then Saturdays around 4 to 6, you start to get the drunk calls where your guests have had a few drinks and they're just letting you know how things are going. So we ignore on Saturday afternoons, we ignore the calls, let them go to voicemail to see if they're actually an emergency, and then we check back in the next day. So in terms of self-managing, one property is not that bad. Hire a great cleaner and you'll be okay. Hire a great cleaner and a good landscape company for winter and summer, and you'll be okay. But for us, we're going more vertical integration. We have a team that we're taking in-house to grow this business. We want to go international. We're looking at Turks and Caicos. We're looking at Florida. So we're trying to grow this.
Very cool. So it must not be too many drunk people if you want to keep going for it. So here's another question from Heidi. Is there a % of property value that you try and stick to for a reno budget?
That's not a specific metric that I work off of. To me, it's all about am I making money on the buy? Am I getting the property under market value? And what's the return on my rehab? So I like to double my money on a rehab. If I spend 100, I want the property going up 200. So my rehab budget isn't based on the property value. I don't. If I got a property that was $1 million that only needed 100 grand, or 400 and only needed 100 grand, as long as the value increases there, it's not a specific percentage.
Cool. Darink is asking, how do you handle how do you handle housekeeping with random turnovers? Do you hire your own or use a service? You said you hire your own now?
Yeah, and there's no random turnovers. We have it's Monday to Friday. There's only 2 days. So that's the big thing. We had a short-term rental in Kitchener, and that was the headache with that one, is it was all random, and that where it was a little bit more management. On the cottages, there's only 2 turnover days.
Cool. Danielle's asking, how are you finding the cottage and sellers? And how has this method changed from when you started to how you acquire them now?
There's another 0 on the end of the price, I guess.
Do you door knock? Like, do you walk around the neighborhood and is that how you're finding people?
We also people know us, right? We're around, they know who we are now, which is a good and a bad thing, I think. But I think a lot of people, we've been approached a lot.
Yeah, we have. People, to answer the question, the 10th one we just bought was a stale listing that went off the market. I looked up who the owner of the property was, messaged them on Facebook. They said, hey, I saw the property, just don't want to sell. Went over, made a deal, closed on it. So, and that was 2 or 3 months ago. So that would be the most recent one that we did. And just, I'll call that modern day door knocking. A little wave on Facebook, a poke or whatever. So yeah.
Nice. Use every strategy that you can, right?
Yeah.
So Don is, I don't know if this is a question. I'm considering an island cottage from MLS and could use some creative financing prior to acquiring it. I guess I have a question about that. Is an island cottage a good choice for having an Airbnb or a short-term rental?
Well, I'm interested, Don, so we could take that conversation offline. But so here's what I would say: probably not for the masses, but there are people looking for it's known as Airbnb experience, looking for that experience. The biggest concern I'd say with the island cottage is what's going to be the transportation. Do your guests need to have a boat? If they need to have a boat, that's going to limit your pool. Or are you operating this as an experience where you're going to have somebody taxing them over? And if there's a person available to do that and the model works, there's pricing, like you can charge the premium, etc. I actually think there are people looking for that cool unique experience. And it looks like Luke's comment there, that's going to be another challenge with that is it might only be 3 seasons, right? Which you're going to limit your winter bookings, but run your numbers. If the numbers work, it could make a lot of sense. Reach out to me, Don, though. Happy to help.
Let's see. Ian's asking, have you heard of any city or county that's not allowing short-term rentals?
Yes. And
Yeah.
right now, there's a short-term rental ban all across Ontario. We've had the cops called on our guests probably a dozen times or half a dozen times in the last month. But we've been doing our due diligence. The guests have to declare that they're in need of housing, and we're not renting to people who just who are just getting together and party right now. They have to declare that they're in need of housing, and if they're in need of housing, you're allowed to rent to them. So there are absolutely bans, and we're respecting the bans. But at the same time, we are a business, and there are rules in which our business is allowed to operate, and we're going to operate within those guidelines.
Awesome. And I'll add on to that. Shawn and I were just looking up in Seguin, I think is sort of North Muskoka, and there are 0 short-term rentals allowed at any time, even outside of COVID. You're not allowed to have any short-term rentals. So definitely do your homework, do some due diligence to see where you can and can't do these.
Yep.
So Dan is asking, Grand Bend is a huge party town. What do you do about mitigating the partiers?
So that's part of our marketing strategy is we honestly, we're probably too expensive for these partier groups, which would typically be the younger groups. And they usually can't afford our cottages. Also, when we do the marketing, we're targeting families. We're not targeting partiers, and families can be partiers too, I guess, but that kind of alleviates some of that. And every once in a while we may have like an issue with a group, but at least we're not attracting those like young prom party groups. And sometimes we'll have like, say, May 2-4 weekend is a popular party weekend. So we know that in advance, and we just raise the price to
astronomical numbers.
Yeah.
So the kids can't afford it, and then when we have good groups that we want to take, we just offer them a deal.
Yeah.
The other part I'll say about that is, now that we're living up here, I'm probably going to go grab a beer when there's a good party at a cottage. Honestly, we host a ton of bachelorette parties, and there's little penis glitter all over the place and all that stuff. But they're honestly great. They're honestly awesome. They clean the place up. It's spotless when they're done. They all have a good time. They know the rules. And our neighbors, if somebody's up past 1-2 in the morning partying, the neighbors don't call us. They call the cops, and the cops shut it down. It happens very rarely. The people know that if they do that, and we get complaints, we're going to take their deposit. But all in all, I would say, as long as you keep the kids out, and I want to put a little caveat on that, because we've had some great 20-year-old groups.
Yeah.
We really have. But as long as you really, scare those 20-year-olds, if you're going to take them, and any other partiers, it's honestly not a big deal. They're usually pretty great. So.
Awesome. Just sort of add on to that, you had mentioned, bigger groups and wanting to renovate your property to add more bedrooms. I'm wondering, is there a sweet spot when it comes to how many bedrooms you want in a rental property? You know, are you inviting 2 or 3 families to come and really kind of wreck the place, or is keeping maybe a fewer bedrooms a better strategy to keep things in, you know, in working order?
The amount of money you can make if you can sleep 15 plus is pretty amazing. We like the 10 to 12. That's two families plus grandma and grandpa is kind of our theory. You know, mom and dad take their 2 kids, which take their 2 kids, and we got 10 people. That's kind of our sweet spot. I will say our bigger one rents out faster, but that's probably where most of those complaints came from, or is at the bigger ones. What we're also seeing, just going back to the other question about short-term rental bans, a lot of the places that are positioned or talking about short-term rental bans understand that they need those short-term people coming into their economy. So what the compromise that I'm hearing a lot is limiting group size. So they don't want 15 people cottages, but if you can sleep 8 to 10, you'll get your license or whatever it is. So that's a little bit of speculation maybe, but that's kind of what we're hearing is if a short-term rental law passes, it's going to be licensed, which means it's going to be taxed, which is fine. We'll pay our taxes. But it might just be capped like 10 people max kind of thing to limit the parties. So.
Okay. We have a few more questions we'll take here before we move on. So Derek's asking, do you find that short-term rentals consume more time compared to long-term rentals once they're all set up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a business. I have triplex buildings that I haven't been in. I personally haven't been in 2 or 3 years. No, we have management taking care of that, but I don't go to them. These take more time, but the cash flow is highly lucrative. They're quite profitable. Even with bringing in all the staff and stuff we're doing, the businesses are still producing a positive, retained earnings at the end. So.
Cool. Awesome. Karen's asking, how do you deal with a situation where someone doesn't follow the rules and regulations? What happens then?
Well, what does my lawyer always say?
Yeah.
Unless you're getting sued, you're not doing it right. No, we haven't had to deal with any of that. I'm sure it's bound to happen. I will say we have a neighbor up in our Wyerton property that, you know, doesn't like our business. They don't like what we do. They're crusading to shut us down and all that. Well, you know, you can't please everybody. We do our best to have great people in the cottage. We try to respect them and their time and all that stuff. But at this point, we've never had any issues like that. I guess the one thing that I'll add to that is do not lie, fudge. Tell your insurance company exactly what you're doing and how much you're going to rent the property out. If your premiums are under $2,000, you didn't tell your insurance company what you're doing. So tell them what you're doing. Make sure you're covered. Make sure you tell them about the hot tub, because not every insurance company covers the hot tub. Tell them, disclose, and you're good. And you have insurance in place if something does happen. So.
Perfect. We'll just do a couple more here. Alex is asking, does the 5% cottage program apply across Canada?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. And let's see here. We'll do one more. Let's see. Dorink is asking, how do you control more guests from showing up that have been registered?
So we've done security cameras. We now have maintenance and staff. Like in the one that's farther away, we have security cameras. The security cameras also worked well for trades. So what we felt like when we were first up there, that when we had a service call, we were getting milked a little bit on the costs, where they were saying that things took them forever that shouldn't have taken that long. So we had security cameras. So the way we positioned that was, hey, just to let you know, we have cameras, so we know when you get there, and if you need anything, just let us know, and to help them. But now we know how long you're at our place, so that's helpful. I do want to answer. I saw the other question from Cheryl about not supplying linens. We have supplied linens only up until COVID. It was when COVID came that we stopped supplying linens. It's never been an issue. What we're doing now is we're actually we're getting some linens that we can sell people, so they can just buy linens from us. If you don't want to worry about bringing it, we're not making money on it. We're just pre-buying them. We have them available. Here you go. You can buy them, and you can just take them when you leave. But nobody's really balked at that. And up until COVID, we always did provide linens. We need our cleaners focusing more on sanitization and stuff like that than linens. The other thing with linens is they're just a headache. They really are.
They take forever. They take probably about 3 hours to turn over just one cottage with the linens. And sometimes, things happen, or there's a stain or something on it, and then people are complaining. That gives them something else to complain about. And we just felt like with COVID, it was just, honestly, like, maybe it is kind of gross that you're using somebody else's linen. I don't know. Yeah, nobody's had an issue with it, honestly.
No, nobody's bought. And the key is going back to good check-in instructions, good information up front. People know what they're buying. They know what they're getting. They know they don't have linens. They just bring their own. So
awesome. Wondering, Kyle, if you would be willing to share your, from one of your cottages, sort of what your welcome package looks like. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, like your check-in.
Yeah.
Like the check-in stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. If you want to send that to me, then I can forward it out to these guys just so they have an idea, best practice, what maybe they should be considering to do.
Yep, 100%.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you guys so much. You shared so much awesome information there. And I'm like excited to invest in short-term rentals and cottages. Shawn's gonna see a new list when he gets home. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. Great presentation. And everyone, I think you're getting a lot of comments here in the chat. Everyone is saying they're having thank you. Next purchase is going to be a cottage. Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. So are you still the host there, Kyle, or am I the host? Because I don't see how I can hand it over to Mark now.
I kind of don't need anything. I can just,
I don't know how to do that.
Okay,
I can just start talking. I'm good. I don't need PowerPoint. I don't need any of that stuff. That's too fancy for me.
Perfect.
I'm just a simple multifamily investor. I don't understand
just a
this stuff.
simple multifamily, massive YouTuber, podcaster, all of that stuff. So
I just got the fancy mic. That's all.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I've lost my train of thought now. I had your bio all pulled up in front of me and now it's gone. So I'm not going to waste any more time there, but Mark Loeffler is an investor out of Hamilton. Mark, how long have you been in the game? How long have you been doing this?
I've been investing now for 18 years.
18 years. Okay. So you've been around the block. You've seen the industry evolve, and Mark has been sort of known for investing in multifamily properties and BRRRRing them. And for those of you, I know there's quite a few people on our call here that are newer to investing. You may not know what BRRRR stands for. So maybe, Mark, you can start off just by sharing what that is and what you're going to be talking about tonight.
Sure. A BRRRR is basically you buy, you renovate, you rent, and you refinance, and you redo it. Same thing Kyle's doing with the cottages. He puts money in to add value. I'm just doing that on multifamily properties. Obviously, I didn't start with multifamily properties. I started out buying duplexes in Newmarket, Ontario. And again, I would always look for value add. So I'd look for something that was run down or that had a problem that I could fix. And when I started, I'd do most of the work. And then I would go ahead and refinance it. So I was BRRRRing before BRRRRing was actually a thing. We just called it smart investing back then, or sweat equity, right? And just a bit of my background. So I've written 2 books on real estate investing, rent to own, investing in rent to own, a complete Canadian guide, and fix and flip. So I've kind of done the full gambit of investing in real estate. I've had Airbnbs. I've kind of rented my cottage out, but that was a pain in the ass. So I stopped doing that. And I am going to get a short-term rental in Canmore right now, but I'm going to have that fully managed, and it's more for lifestyle for me. But yeah, so now, I'm kind of used to interacting. So
you want to chat? Do you want to talk to me?
Yeah. Well, I guess no. The room was like so. you say not many people know BRRRRs, but how many people out there are looking at like buying a single family property and turn it into a duplex? Because there's a lot of that going on right now, right? It's one of the best ways to BRRRR. And, you know, to me, that's the best, one of the best opportunities right now is in the 1 to 4 unit space where they're going in, putting in the money, and they're getting out, you know, 60 to 100% of their money, right? And I tell people to do that until they run out. And by usually that means is they either run out of money, they don't run out of money because they're BRRRRing, but they run out of space to get financing, right? And that's why I made the move to commercial or apartment buildings, because the more buildings I acquire, the more the bank likes me. Right. Right. So when, I guess just some basic numbers on my BRRRRs. Again, I don't have any fancy slides, so I apologize. And I might talk quick. So if I do and you miss something, just jot it in there and I will get to it after. Okay. So my basic numbers, what I'm looking for on a multifamily BRRRR is I need 30 to 40% uptick in rents. Now, in Ontario, that's not that hard with rent control. So basically what I'm usually looking for is something that's been owned by somebody. They might even built the property back in the 70s and they've ran it, and you know, they don't upgrade it. They go there every day just to get away from their wife or their husband or whatever that looks like. And you know, they don't raise the rent because they put an ad out for rent at $900 or whatever. They get 15 applicants and they can pick the little old lady, little old man that's never going to miss their rent, never is going to complain about anything, and they have no hassles. And they're usually generally pretty well maintained, yet they're outdated. So that's basically my model, is I'm looking for outdated properties. And I mean, I know you guys obviously do this as well, right? Like you guys are pretty big. I know Corey's big into this. There's a lot of investors out there that this is what they're doing. And my simple metric is, as long as I can increase that rent 30 to 40% over the base, then I know I can BRRRR all my money out.
So how are you finding these properties? Like, what are you doing?
So I owned, and I still own some of that portfolio, but it's being sold right now. So I had 8 buildings in Hamilton, Ontario for about 170 units. I sold 140 of those units just recently because, I mean, no offense, but I think prices in Ontario are getting a little silly. I still think there's definitely opportunity here, and I know people are still buying. But the majority of those came from relationships that I knew people either owned the properties or I had relationships with realtors. I bought a couple of them off market, or sorry, on market. And the multifamily space is a very, very small world. There's a lot of people who do it, but everyone knows each other. So everyone knew who I was in Hamilton. So whenever I brought an offer on a deal, they said, well, this guy will get it done. If you want, like, and this is a reason why a lot of people don't list multifamily properties, because you go there and you get an accepted offer and they tie it up for a month and a half, and they might just walk away from the deal, right? Because something little comes up, or, you know, now you're going to argue over $20,000, you know, just some little stuff, right? And it just becomes that, oh, well, I'd rather sell it to Mark for a little bit less because I know he'll just close. If he has to close cash, I know he can probably just go find the money and close cash, you know, because they know when you're in the game and that when you're doing this, they know that you'll be able to figure it out, right? Like I got a deal done in Alberta recently, which I've just recently gone to, and we were able to close in 5 weeks. And that was, the seller was like, we need to close on this day. This is my mortgage coming up, and insurance is coming up. I don't want to renew it. I don't want to do it. I'm like, okay. I go, for that, we need this price. And I go, listen, I will go close all cash if I have to. And just don't worry about it. And I actually knew the seller, which was really weird because it was brought to me. Well, I mean, I can say it now. I bought the building off Don Campbell, the godfather of real estate, right? So he knew who I was. He knew my reputation, and he's like, okay, Mark will close, no problem. Right. I should have had some points here, but that's okay.
That's okay. We have actually, there's a good question here. What's your process when you do find a property, you close on a deal? What's your process to finding the trades or the contractors? Do you have your own team, or do you find people local? What do you do?
So, okay, well, I mean, obviously it's a good question, and you develop teams in any area you go to, and you build that team. So we just went out to Alberta. That was our first property out there. And we went on a message board on Facebook, very similar to this. It's just the RAIN website. And I said, hey, who has recommendations? And I got a boatload of recommendations for property managers, for contractors. And then I reached out to some investors I knew there, and I took a couple out for dinner when I went out there. And I just said, who would you use? Who would you use for this? Who would you use for that? And I got some more recommendations. So I had a list of a whole bunch of people, and I basically sat down and made a dialing for dollars and contacted them all. And the property manager that we picked, we felt they got it. I mean, Edmonton right now is like Hamilton was for me like 5-10 years ago. When I renovate my units, I make them condo styles, right? So I would either use IKEA kitchens or custom kitchens with marble countertops. I put in nice flooring. I put in nice lighting. I put in laundry in each unit, dishwashers in each unit. I renovate the bathrooms. So they're totally hands off. They're easy to do, right? And people weren't doing that in Edmonton. It was like Hamilton was 10 years ago, where a renovated unit meant they put down some cheap laminate and they painted. Maybe they changed the knobs on the kitchen and painted it, right? Whereas I come in and I open up spaces. So I knock down walls. I put a nice breakfast bar in, and it's like, again, what Kyle's doing is I modernize it. And I realized that there was a gap in that market where you're getting $900 to $1,000 for a 2-bedroom in the crappy condition, and brand new 2-bedroom rentals are getting $2,000. So all I need to do is go in there and make my units, they're not going to be as nice as the new, they're going to be close, but I don't need $2,000. I need $1,450 all day long. And then, so in Ontario, this is one of the issues in Ontario for me, is that there's landlord tenant rules and we have rent control. So I always get asked, number one is, okay, you're going to buy this building. How am I going to BRRRR it because it's full of tenants paying $600 a month and market rent's $1,200 a month? They're not going to leave. Yes, this is an issue, but I'm going to tell you that probably just by managing it effectively, and by that I mean following the landlord tenant rules, by if they miss rent on the first of the month, you send them an N4. And just by doing that, you're going to lose 25% of the building in the first year. They're just going to move out. They're not going to want to deal with it. You're going to be the bad guy, and they're just going to leave. So in the first year, I typically have about a 25% turnover. And then after that, it really depends on how entrenched people are, but you can start doing cash for keys. When I was in Ontario, I never did more than $3,000 for cash for keys. I could have done more and got people out quicker, but I kept buying buildings and I couldn't renovate. So at one point last year, we were renovating 15 suites at one time. And it's like, okay, well, I don't need any more. I'd rather them pay whatever they're paying. Let me renovate these 15. And then if I have, if I have free time, then I'll go start knocking on doors and doing cash for keys. And there's going to be some people, because I always get this question. I've known people who've offered tenants to leave in Toronto $100,000 and they didn't take it. Same in Hamilton, $50,000 and they didn't take it. You know what? It's just going to happen sometimes. So just move on. Don't worry about that. Just move on.
Holy, okay, that's that's something. So you're not, buying an apartment building and renovating the whole thing all at once. You're doing things sort of bit by bit as people start to churn out.
Well, so yes and no. So my first apartment building that I ever bought was an 18-unit building that was it was vacant. So it was basically a condemned property, and I went in and obviously renovated. There was basically like 6 units in each block type thing. So I could renovate 6 at a time and get them rented and get some income coming in, and the bank would finance 6 at a time for me. But so I've done that. When I first started, I was looking for the worst of the worst, because I didn't have that strategy of, I only need 30 to 40% increase in rent. I was like doubling and tripling rents. But I was doing a lot more work. And then I was like, I don't need to buy as bad a building. And I moved away from stick built to construct concrete buildings in Ontario, for the simple fact that you get better tenants because there's no sound between units, not as much, and the smells between units are diminished.
Okay, that's a really good point. Smells
But you
between
pay-
units, you want to keep that to a minimum.
And you pay more for them, but sometimes it's worth it, right? So
Right. So I could see how maybe some newer, less experienced investors might think you want to get the worst property out there, but that's not necessarily your strategy, right? Go for something that's been well taken care of, and just needs some updating.
yeah, I don't want to do the capital maintenance, right? Because putting a new boiler in, although it might save me some money on my expenses, which every dollar saved on my expenses is, worth $20 to me, yet I can spend that $50,000 renovating 2 to 3 units and get multiple thousands dollars a month increase rather than putting that money into a boiler. So if the capital maintenance is already done and all I have to do is renovate units when they become available, that's much easier and it's much more lucrative.
Makes sense. Paulette had a question here. Do you buy first and then offer cash for keys? So maybe there's some newer people on here, maybe explain how cash for keys works and what that is exactly.
Yeah, so I would typically, I buy, and typically there's usually a vacant unit or 2 when I start. So I'll just start renovating those. And then cash for keys is basically, my contractor would do this, is they basically go knock on doors saying, hey, I'm looking for the next unit to renovate. I'll help you with some moving expenses and we'll help you pack up and leave. And some people would say yes, some people would say no, or basically said, do you have any plans on moving in the next little bit? And again, I could have been more aggressive with it and just gone and knocked on doors and basically asked how much would it be for them to leave? Right. And the thing I'm just going to say is, when you do stuff like this, have a conversation. You don't need to be super aggressive with it. Just have a conversation. The more you can have a conversation and be in relationship with these people, you can find out what their wants and needs are. Maybe it's not money, right? Maybe it's terms. Maybe they really do want to leave, but you just need to hire them a packer and a moving truck and movers. Right? They don't want to organize all that stuff.
Great point. It goes back to, again, like, this is a people business, whether you are needing to get to know other people in the real estate space to do deals, or whether it's, connecting with tenants or connecting with, sellers to really find out what it is that is important to them so that you can work together to find a win-win situation.
Well, it's like that person who's owned it since 1970, they have a huge capital gain coming. And maybe they're worried about, well, this is their income. So maybe I can do a vendor take back, alleviate some of those taxes so they can pay it out over 5 years, and I can give them some income. And it helps me too, because usually I can get an interest only mortgage, which lowers my cost of borrowing, so I can turn over tenants faster and be able to, still cash flow.
Perfect. Fantastic. Oh yeah, Corey, go ahead.
Question for you there, Mark. A lot of people are looking for the elusive vendor take back on smaller deals, and maybe you could confirm this as well, because you're doing bigger deals, but this is something that's much more common as you get into bigger buildings, because you're dealing with a natural business person. You're dealing with a building that will require a bigger down payment, or even creativity. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how important creativity is, or maybe what one of your most creative deals have been. So I think a lot of newer investors, they're just not used to thinking outside the box of, you know, how important the terms can be versus just the dollar. Like, that's only one part of the deal.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, so one of the deals I did, I had a 90% VTB. Interest rates were typically like from the banks at that time was about 3.5 to 4% on a multifamily deal. And they held 3% interest only for 5 years. One of the most interesting deals we did during COVID was the banks just shriveled up and said, hey, we're not doing anything, because they were just basically rammed with small business owners getting the loans, and they're like, we can't process anything. And so we said, okay. We went back to the vendor. And so the tricky part about doing second mortgages on anything is that the first lender won't let it happen. Right? So when the first lender finds out about the second, they're not going to close. So we had set it up that they were going to put the second mortgage on, blanket a couple other properties, and then a week or two later, put it back on the subject property. Right. So we've done that a couple of times during COVID, just because the banks weren't, they basically dried up for a little bit there, a couple months. And then they came back after the summertime and said, oh yeah, we can lend again. We're good to go. Right. You know, and I guess one of the big things in multifamily right now is that it is taking a lot longer to get your financing. We can talk about also the difference between like a CMHC mortgage and a well, non-CMHC, just a regular a lender or a credit union. So when you go ahead and like, you'll see people say, well, I'm getting 85% from CMHC. And well, I mean, I know you guys, Jen and Shawn there, you guys got 85% of your purchase price, or it wasn't 85, it was like 78, wasn't it?
That's a Shawn question.
Okay. Well, he said it on my show. And if you guys want to do that, you can, we talked about when you guys bought the schoolhouse, but you got 78% of loan to purchase price with CMHC. So a lot of people say when they get 85%, it's the loan to CMHC's value, not to the actual appraised value or your purchase price. And really the only place I'm seeing that is in smaller towns. Like in Hamilton, somebody tells me, oh, I'm going to get 85% from CMHC. I'm like, okay, well, you're not getting it of the purchase price. Because if that's what you're trying to do, we're all just wasting our time. But I mean, obviously the benefit, you can get 35 or 40-year AMs, which again, lowers your costs. And, you know, you get lower interest payments, where as a typical bank, I'm getting anywhere from 65 to 75%. And it goes, if you want to close quick, you go to either a private lender or a credit union. And, you know, medium term is the A lenders. And then if you have 6 to 12 months, then you go CMHC.
Very good. Awesome. We have actually a couple questions come in here. So Francis was asking, how do you determine the maximum renovation budget you should spend if the lift is 30%? So what kind of formula, and this was another question that was asked, you know, how do you analyze these buildings to know, you know, if the numbers work or not?
Let me share my screen.
Okay. Are you able to here?
I just tried. It said host has to.
Oh, I'm not
disabled.
seeing, okay. I don't know what happened here. I don't see myself as the host either. I can share my screen though. Weird.
Okay. It's okay. It's not so well. It just, so it really depends, right? So it's a mathematical equation. So 20 units times $300 a month is $6,000 a month, right? So it really depends on the market you're in, because again, we're not basing these on comparables. We're basing this on a cap rate. So if you're in Southwestern Ontario right now, I'm probably going to tell you your cap rate is that they're going to use anywhere from 4 to 5%. So like for Sarnia, for instance, Corey, on your refis, you're getting around 4.75 to 5. Yep. You know, London, you're probably seeing 4.5. Hamilton, you're seeing 4 to 4.25. So let's just use 4.5%. So all we do here is we get our trusty calculator here and we do 6,000 times 12 because it's yearly. And then we just divide it by 0.045. So that's $1.6 million. So on 20 units, even if that cost me, I don't know, 25, let's just say $30,000 a unit. That's $600,000 to renovate that to get $1.6 million in value. So that's kind of, I mean, that's as simple math as you can get. I just run everything back to a cap rate, and that's why I like commercial. So 5.5 in good areas. So, I mean, you can do the math on that. Oops. I don't know what I just did there. 72,000 divided by 0.055. So you're 1.3 million. So again, if it costs you $600,000 to renovate that, is that worth to get 1.3 million? I mean, again, that's Kyle's number was double. So we work in Kyle's world. Kyle would do that renovation.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, I think, do you want to try sharing your screen now, Mark? I tried to do something. I think I was still host.
Okay. Yep, I got it. Where am I here?
Is there the share screen bottom middle? Yeah, awesome.
Let me just. So these are my calculators. This is what I basically live on. Can you see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Property analyzer. Oh, I'll put this in the way. Sorry. So. Nope, that's not. I got too many open.
We just
So
see the one
Fairtree-
on the screen. So you've got
Yeah.
a 20-unit building.
So, oh, you just see that one. You don't see. No. Let me just. Let's do this now. Sure. I got it. Okay. Again, technology is not my friend, so I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. You're a good company with me. All right. So
All right.
now we see your whole sort of analyzer here.
Right. So this is how I process a deal right here. So this is a deal we recently got accepted. It got accepted yesterday. No, yesterday we were out in Edmonton yesterday. Flew back just for this meeting, which I didn't need to apparently. So again, we bought it for there's a 23 unit, 2,162,000. I'm getting 75% from a commercial, a credit union out there, service or whatever it's called. So in this scenario, this seller already had a phase one and a building inspection report from January. So I just have to get a reliance letter from them to give to the bank, and they both came back pretty clean. So my down payment is $540. My immediate repairs on 23 units is I'm doing $25,000 a unit, plus I'm going to do some common areas upgrades there. So I'm $500,000. I don't have an inspection. I did put it in there still. My financing costs have at $86,480. If you want to know why that's so high, is because I joint venture all my projects, and there's a 3% acquisition fee for our operating company to basically pay for our admin, to pay travel expenses going out there, just to pay all the costs. And then we have our legal cost is $4,500, and then we have a staying power fund of around $14,000, and that's also just to bring the capital raise to a round number because I don't like to have not round numbers. So when I finish this, I'll talk to you about how I kind of structure this deal too. It's kind of interesting. And I know most people aren't doing it this way. Most people do joint ventures 50-50, and I kind of do it a different way. So this is gross rents, laundry. You guys can see the expenses. 920, this is water and hydro, property taxes. Well, the one thing you'll notice about it in Alberta, they don't have as we have in Ontario is the land transfer tax. Just thought I'd throw that in there and just jab a little bit, sorry. So this is it. I'm buying it at a 6.3 cap. So, I mean, it's decent. Like if I just run the numbers on this, I get a 4% cash on cash return, 4% mortgage pay down, and with 4% appreciation, I get 7. So I'm running it at 16%. So as is, it's fine. It's not like this is a blow me out of the water type of deal, but it is what it is. But then I come over here and I come to my after repair value. So in Edmonton, on a nice building, I can get a 5 cap. So basically all I do is, you can see the formula here. H91 is my net operating income divided by 0.05. So 0.05 is just a 5 cap. So I'm going to now get a 75% mortgage on that, which is $3,030,000. My initial first mortgage was 1,62150. My investment was $1,150,000. So in my joint venture, I pay an 8% hurdle rate. So I calculate 2 years worth of that hurdle rate. It's basically a preferred rate I give to my investors, or a second mortgage, whatever you want. It's just unregistered. And I always calculate again, 2 years. So $184,000 is what I pay out. And so my total afterwards is I make $75,000 on this deal. I pay back everyone, and we have $75,000 plus we have about $1.2 million in equity sitting there. So this is getting the gross rents from 19,000 to 25,000. So it's right around that 30 to 33% number. Our heating costs will probably go down because we'll make some stuff more efficient. Same with utilities, but I like to run the numbers as is. Oh, I forgot. I should take out the laundry costs, because we take out laundry, put laundry in each unit. Property tax stay the same. This is our ensuite in-suite manager. And basically, so I'm running at a 5 cap and I'm cash flowing $3,000 a month after. And so a lot of people would say, well, that's 100% return. I now have infinite returns. I have this big piggy bank where it's set it and forget it. I will never go to that building again. Well, that's probably a lie, but I won't think about it all that often because it's in the system. I'm really not paying attention to it, and I kind of just leave it.
That sounds pretty darn good.
And yeah, I don't know how to, I probably should have had some of these up, but let me see if I can. And here's the thing, like, so people analyze one deal and tell me they can't find an apartment building. I probably look at, last week I made 5 offers on apartment buildings. Right now I'm in the process of 3 other offers on buildings. I analyzed 2 just today. Numbers came in, I throw them quickly in there. I say, oh, before and after, right? Does this work?
So how many deals would you say you analyze to get to a winner typically?
I probably analyze, so out of 10 deals that I analyze, I'll probably put offers in on 7 of them and buy 1.
Okay. That's good to know. So you need to have a full funnel, right? Like you can't just find one apartment building here or there. It's really, you got to be out there looking.
Yeah. And well, so here's the thing. And when I was in Ontario, it's easier to find stuff that's below market rents. that you can have huge lifts in rents. Like I was getting, when I was buying stuff in Ontario, I was getting 100% lift in rents, but that's because I had to overpay. So when I'm in Ontario, I'm buying it probably like last one I bought was like a 3.6 cap, which at this point would be brilliant because people are paying less than 3 caps for potential, at least in Hamilton. So that's one of the other reasons why I might have gone out of Ontario. I think I'm in the wrong.
Is that your first building that you've purchased outside of Ontario, or do you have more?
No, so I bought a 15 unit in, so the first one was Dawn's building. This is the second building I have under contract.
Okay,
And they're like 2 blocks from each other. So
perfect.
it just happened to be that way. I'm trying to, I was kind of going to show some pictures of what that's okay.
Oh, some pictures of your before buildings?
Yeah, it's all good. We don't need to do that because I don't know how to figure it out.
That's okay. We had a question actually come in wondering if you would mind sharing your template of how you analyze a building. Is that something that you offer? Is that something that you have, like, do you have a website or?
So if you go to my Facebook page, it is part of the premium package there. It's $8 a month. Hey, sign up for 1 month, get that thing and leave, whatever you guys want to do. But yeah, go check out my web or my YouTube page, just the Mark Loeffler experience. You Google Mark Loeffler, you can find that. But there's tons of property analyzers out there. Mine is just super simple. It's kind of basic, but again, if you want it, that's where it is.
Perfect. We're going to put that, I'll add that to, grab a pen here that fell. I'm going to add that to the email. So once the evening's wrapped up, this is being recorded. I will be putting it on YouTube and I'll be sending out your contact info to our whole list. So I'll mark down that your YouTube channel and how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I'll throw it up in the chat there too. I can do
Perfect.
that I can do. I know how to do that.
Fantastic. Okay, let's see. Any other questions for Mark here? Here we go. So Luke is asking, are you still buying in Ontario or is it maybe not the best market right now?
Like I still buy in Ontario. Well, sorry. I still would buy in Ontario. I haven't found an opportunity yet. I did find something today that I probably am going to throw an offer in on. We're going to see if that happens. You just know that if you're buying in Ontario, you're going to overpay. And you know what? My rule in Ontario, and it's still slowly becoming my rule in Alberta too, is overpay today and in 5 years you'll look like a genius. The difference in Ontario to somewhere like Alberta, and this is why I'm more cautious out there of overpaying, is in Ontario, it's very hard to build a purpose-built rental. Like to bring something to market, it's going to take you 18 to 24 months, minimum, and a lot of money and a lot of hassle. And they're going to cut you down from 100 units to 60 units. So like, just for instance, in Hamilton, they need about 1,000 rental units a year just to keep up with demand. And they're getting maybe 300 to 400. Now they're bringing all these things with obviously garden suites and secondary units, yet they're still not getting enough demand. So with rent control and everything, you can be pretty darn sure that in Ontario, your rents are going to go up. More people are going to move into Ontario. They're not building enough units. Your rents are going to go up. When I'm in Alberta, it's kind of more the Wild West. So whereas I can raise the rent whatever I want every year, yet that also goes the other way, is because people can do that, they'll just be like, okay, I'm going to build 200 units. And it takes them a lot less time to do that. So competition can come on very quick. It's more of a free market economy. And you just don't have that same protection. So there's that balance there. So I definitely am looking in Ontario still for the right product. Just haven't found it in a little bit. So,
Okay.
and I did just sell 7 of the 8 buildings I own in Hamilton. So
Oh, I don't think Shawn was one of those buyers.
no, he wouldn't pay the price.
No, probably
We
not.
sold everything at less than a 3 cap.
Okay. Well, it's definitely a great time to sell. I know we've sold a lot of our properties right now as well. Robin was asking, so let's get away from maybe big apartment buildings and talk about, if you're newer to investing, getting in, what's the best strategy for investing in Hamilton for someone who wants to house hack and use that sort of the BRRRR for their next investment property? Do you have any tips there?
Yeah. Your best thing is to buy a 4-plex. Live in 1 unit, renovate that unit. I'd live in the basement. I'd try to get the whole property vacant to start off with, and I'd renovate the whole thing at the beginning. You can put 10% down on a 4-plex. If you don't got 10% down, you're doing 5% down on a duplex. And maybe add another suite or something like that, add some value and renovate. Live in 1 unit or 1 bedroom, rent out the other bedroom, rent out the unit, and you can still live basically for free. Again, I house hacked before I knew house hacking was cool. And like when I first started, I had a 4-bedroom apartment that I rented on the Danforth for like $1,100. I used to rent out the rooms for $500 a piece. And I basically lived there for free. And then I bought a duplex and we lived in 1 apartment and we rented that other one, and that paid the whole mortgage plus the property tax. Right. So it obviously can be done, and Hamilton's a great spot to do it, and just figuring out whether you're doing how much of a down payment you got and what you want. And if you're going to BRRRR it, then it kind of maybe doesn't make sense to CMHC it if you don't have to.
Right. Actually, Shawn and I also started, that's one of the first things we did was bought a triplex here in Woodstock right before they announced that the Toyota plant was coming. So it ended up being a really great investment, living in the 1 half of it, renting out the other 2 units, pays for all your expenses. And it's a great way to get started in investing.
Well, to be honest with you, it allowed me to become a full-time real estate investor. It allowed me to write books. It allowed me to do all that type of stuff, right? Because we had very little expenses.
Yeah.
We were fired before what fire was.
Fantastic. All right, let's see here. Karen says, are you looking for interns? Would love to have a mentor. So do you do mentoring? Do you do coaching, Mark?
I do not. No offense, Corey and Kellen and all you guys who do it. God bless you. It's too much of a job for me. I did used to coach. I used to coach real estate agents and pretty high performing ones, but it's just too much of a job. I don't want to be scheduled if I want to go golfing because it's a nice afternoon, or if I want to go drive the Porsche, or I want to go for a bike ride, or whatever I want to do, head to the cottage, I can go just do that. I work my own schedule. So interns, I don't know what I'd do with you.
So somewhere where someone can keep learning about this is your podcast and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so started off last year, we were putting out 3 shows a week. We've cut that back again down to 2 because it started feeling like a job. There's a pattern here. When it starts to feel like a job, I stop doing it. But 2 is like nice. It's comfortable for me. I don't know what the difference is, but it's a lot easier. So I do 2 a week. I think there's some good information there. So if you guys want to check that out, the Mark Loeffler experience, I think I did put it in the chat. Yes, I did. So
yeah, and I'll add that to the email that goes out to everyone afterwards. And you also have books you mentioned. Where are those available?
Yeah, Amazon. Just look up Mark Loeffler. So investing in rent-owned properties, a complete Canadian guide, or fix and flip for Canadian real estate investors. I wrote that with my good friend Ian Zabo.
Yes, excellent. Actually, we have one of Ian's books on our bookcase. It was one of the first books Shawn read, the
Reynolds to Riches.
Reynolds to Riches. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Robin's asking a good question here. Can you determine just by looking at a listing if it can be converted into a multifamily? And if so, what are some things to look for? Now, I know there are some really particular things depending on what city you're in. So I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, so I'm really not in that space right now. I mean, like you guys can get Ken back into on, like Corey's probably more up on this stuff than I am, or what's the guy, Sweet Additions. I mean, I honestly, I would just call my architect and he would tell me if I ever have something like that. And it's all has to do with frontage and how big the units are. And, you know, I know that in Hamilton it's a little antiquated. You have to have you used to be able to, have like at least 700 square foot of a unit. Now they're changing that, thankfully, because I mean, you can buy 300 square foot units places now, right? So some people don't need as much space, other people do. So honestly, that comes down to building your team. You should never take that realtor's word for it because they probably don't know anyways. Yet you should have somebody on your team that this is what they do full time, is they go and apply to the city and get these things done. And they're going to be able to help you a lot more than some jerk like me.
Well, for those of you who haven't done or haven't been to sort of Henri's in the past, we've had Ken Beckendam in the past, who is fantastic. He is the sort of secondary suite king around here. Unfortunately, we didn't have his presentation recorded, but maybe we'll get him on again soon, because this is a topic that is very interesting. A lot of people are, you know, it's how a lot of people get started in these conversions now, right?
Honestly, I tell people, they come to me all the time. I'm like, oh, we want to buy an apartment building. I'm like, great. What do you own? They're like, nothing. I'm like, why don't you go convert a couple single families first? Because they're simple and easy. Typically, you're buying them off homeowners, so you don't need to do cash for keys. You get vacant, so you can come in, you can make your plan, and in 6 to 8 months, you can be completed on that property and have a legal duplex and rent it out and have already BRRRR'd it. Whereas, you know, to BRRRR an apartment in Ontario, it takes 2 to 4 years.
That's
right?
a good point.
It just takes that much longer. So the reason why you would go and buy apartment buildings is because you've maxed yourself out on doing the smaller ones, or you have the problem that you have too much money. Right? And if you have too much money, it's better to go and, like the one I just shared, we're at $1.15 million that we're on our raise. So if I raise $1.15 million to go do BRRRRs, I'm probably doing 3 to 4. But when I was in Ontario, I was buying $4 to $5 million properties, and we were putting substantially more down. So the raise was like $2-3 million per. So when you're dealing in those numbers, it becomes, you'd have to buy a lot of properties. I mean, you'd have to buy as many properties as Jenn and Shawn do. And I that's just not my business model. I'd rather buy one. And
we're starting to convert. We're starting to see the light, Mark, heading over the other direction. It's a lot to manage when you're buying all these to flip.
Come on, Shawn will never stop.
No, he'll never stop. That's for sure. Okay, so Ishan has a question here, and I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. Hey, Mark, if your closing date is 3 months or more down the lane, do you strike a conversation of cash for keys before you close to save time for tenants by letting them know ahead of time, or do you wait for the closing date?
Typically, I wait for the closing date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in that process, I always, in my offers, once it's a firm deal, they don't, if anybody leaves, they don't put any more tenants in. So the longer the close, the more likely you're getting vacant units anyways.
Yeah.
And kind of the bank likes you to have people in the units. So when I bought my first deal in Edmonton just now, I kind of forgot about it because I'm talking to a credit union. Guy seemed a little cool, whatever. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of vacancies because we're gonna renovate it, and this is what we're gonna do. And he's like, man, that's a great business plan. Yeah, we're in. We'll give you $1 million. I'm like, okay. And then he comes back. His risk department's like, no, man, like a third of the building's vacant. Like, we're only gonna fund that 2/3 that's rented. I'm like, oh, right. This is still a bank. I need to present it better. So my fault. You learn, you move on. So
that's a good teaching point. That's a really good teaching point. Karsten's asking, how are you putting together the financing, the money partners prior to submitting an offer to ensure that you can close on the apartment? So here's a good question. Do you get the money first and then offer, or do you offer and find the money partners?
So I always have the deal first. I am probably in a unique situation where I can close on any property that I want just because I have the funds available personally. I don't like to use those funds because I want to use those funds to be diversified in other areas, or for, buying a condo in Canmore for my own personal use that I'm going to rent out. So typically, if you get a good deal and you can present it well, our last deal, when we had that 15 units, we had sold out in 10 minutes. We haven't presented that 23 unit because we just got it under contract. We got back. I am a realtor still. We had multiple offers on a couple properties tonight that we were dealing with. So I haven't put that package together, and it's, we're probably 50% of the money raised already. Like, we've got just a little bit around 600,000, 575 already in. So it's just one of those things. And once you do more and more of them, then the money is sitting there. So let me talk to you. You're talking about structure. So I do multiple joint venture partners on each deal now. I used to just do one. I don't like to do that anymore, because if something happens, something blows up, then I'd rather have a couple people on the deal in smaller pieces. I can take that one person out, no problem, typically at any time. If you get to the point where you have 7 buildings with one joint venture partner, and then they, whatever reason, just say, hey, I'm done, then it became a challenge. I couldn't buy those 7 properties off them. I could have, but I couldn't buy them at a price that was actually within the market. So, but if he was a small piece of each and he wanted out, it's like, okay, great, no problem. Here you go. So let's talk about how I do deals. Most people do 50-50 deals. So all I do is I do a corporate structure. Each building has its own corporation. We do up to 10 investors on each deal, but we typically use 4 to 6, just depending on the raise. And we give we take 75% of the equity. We give 25% to the investor, but they get an 8% preferred return. So until they get all their money back, they make 8% on their money. And that gets paid on a capital event, such as a refinance or a sale, or a cash flow, typically a cash flow event, but we don't really cash flow on any of these buildings right off, because obviously we're turning over a lot of people. I think that's
all. Great.
I think I answered all Karsten's questions.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ishan's also asking, what's the ideal cap rate you look for when buying buildings?
The ideal cap rate. Well, it really depends on where you are. If I could buy a 3.5 cap in Hamilton right now, I would do it. If I could buy a 4 cap on 401 corridor, say like east of the city, like Belleville, Coburg, Kingston, I would do it. If I could buy in London, that 4.25 cap with upside, 4.25 cap with upside, I'm in. Niagara Falls, 3.75 to 4. Sarnia, like a 9 cap. That's just for Corey, sorry. So it really depends on where you're going, right? Thing 1 and thing 2. When I'm in Edmonton, when I'm in Alberta. So again, Calgary, I'm looking at like a 4.25 cap. I'm looking at one in Fort McMurray right now. That's probably like a 5.6, 5.7 cap. The Edmonton stuff, I'm buying just over a 6, but I've looked at stuff in Edmonton, which is a 4.5 cap. It just depends on what I can do for upside and what that looks like and what that total overall package looks like. And if I can, in that 2-year period, especially in Alberta, and 4 years in Ontario, if I can repay that investor 100% of the money, plus that 8%, and if that line is anywhere near black, that I'm good to go.
All right. So really, when people are looking outside of Ontario, they're looking at, say, buying out east, which is also a really hot market right now. You know, how do you have any resources or any sort of direction you would say to get people to sort of do their homework, what they can look at so that they are well educated and they can make the right decisions?
Yep, run the numbers on a whole bunch of buildings.
Yeah.
So I've done the homework. Out east, like Moncton, that area, I didn't really like it that much, this is me personally, because of the economics. I didn't see that there was going to be huge economic growth, and I'm making an educated guess that oil is going to go up because there's going to be reopening. I think that more people are going to fly, cruise ships are going to go again, people are going to drive. So oil will be in more demand, and they've limited supply. And I don't think they're going to turn on the taps again for a while. Plus, we got this other stupid thing that we can't even get the oil to market because, well, we don't build pipelines, and it's all shipped by rail car and that type of stuff. But that's a whole other issue. So we don't need to get into that. But I think Alberta is going to do very well from that, and they're diversifying it economically, and they're a little bit lower tax. So,
okay. There was a question. Do you think there's an advantage to being a realtor or mortgage broker in this game as a newcomer? Or is it always about who you know, like the networking piece? I'll just say, sort of to cut you off before you answer that. I don't think there's a lot of people doing this, and Corey, you can chime in as well, who are not realtors, not mortgage brokers, but have really gotten to know people and partnered up and been able to, like you said, build a good team so that they could be able to be successful, because you want to be a real estate investor. You don't necessarily want another job as a realtor or a job as a mortgage broker. You want to be able to focus on investing. But that's just sort of been our view, because we had considered becoming a realtor and it just didn't make sense. But there could be an advantage. What are your thoughts?
Yes and no. You don't need to be a realtor to do very well as a real estate investor. If you want to be in real estate full time, and like I did sales before, and I think I'm decent at that job, but that's what it is. It's a job, right? And then I earn enough from that and doing some of my own deals that I don't have to really, take money out of the properties though, right? I don't need the properties to live because of everything I typically buy or do it here that I get paid commission on. So that's the only maybe difference. But for a new person, is getting the license going to educate you enough to then become a realtor, or become a real estate investor? No. 99% of realtors don't invest in real estate, just the same as the general public. You're better off hanging out in groups like this and on, the Facebook chats and that, and asking those questions and getting out and analyzing deals. And again, don't rely on those realtors' numbers anyways, because they're probably lying to you. They're salespeople. They're paid to sell. So run your own numbers and be able to figure that out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, we got a couple more questions here. It's already 9 o'clock, so we'll be wrapping up shortly. But Andrew's asking, on a long close, are you putting a clause in the purchase agreement that there are to be no new tenants once the deal is signed, or is that just an understanding?
No. So I put a thing in all my offers that once this deal is firm, that the seller is not to place any tenants in any units.
Yeah.
And you can't, so I've seen a lot of offers where it's like, once this offer is accepted, there'd be no new tenants. And that's unfair to the seller, because if I tie this thing up for a month and a half, and I don't firm up, then they've just lost all that runway to find that tenant.
Right. Okay. A couple more questions here. Karsten's asking, when you're just starting off, what would you say are the best methods to build a pool of investors to be able to raise the capital once you find a good deal?
I would say the networking groups like this. Number one, you know what? friends and family are going to be one of your biggest sources too. So you start analyzing deals and just ask people, say, hey, I have analyzed this deal. I'd like to propose it to you. I'm not buying this property, but I want to propose it to you. But is this something that and when you propose it, you say, is this something you might be interested in if I could find this and put a deal together like this? And they're going to say yes or no. And you say, thank you. And and if you do it to a salesperson, you say, hey, any tips or tricks that you think would help me be able to help, like, improve my presentation?
Perfect. And actually, to add on to that, next month at our next ONRIA event, we will be having someone coming on talking about branding yourself and how to do what you're asking, and really how to get connected to people that have money, money partners that you can start to form your relationships with, and how to do that on social media. Social media, Instagram, I'll just full disclosure here. Since Shawn started posting regularly about what he's doing, and mind you, we have been doing this for a while now, so he's got kind of a back pocket full of deals he can talk about. But when you're first starting out, even just doing Facebook Lives or doing posts about properties that you're going to see or things that you've looked at, you start to get known as someone who is an investor, right? And that's what people they want to work with people who know what they're talking about, not some random guy that's like, oh, okay, I saw this on MLS. I think it's a good deal. What do you think? You want to start building that recognition. And it does take a bit of time, but absolutely networking and also being consistent with showing up and talking about what you're doing. Corey, like Corey said, social proof is really important. So that's going to be one of our topics next month at ONRIA, and I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes.
I was just going to say, you just hire Corey as a coach and he'll teach you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, every one of the coaching clients that I know of his are crushing it, and with joint ventures and with everything. So you must be doing something right.
Yeah, Corey, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I can mention it really quickly. Sorry, I got 4 kids just came home, and somebody's lighting fireworks off in the neighborhood. When you get somebody that's really ambitious, like Mark was saying, like it's great when you get people that are doing it all for the right reasons, and they have big goals and aspirations. And on the other hand, it's not for everybody either. Like for someone who just wants to dabble, they can probably go figure it out with their power team and putting it together off YouTube. But if somebody wants to really start to scale and buy more and more and more, then you need to kind of be in conversations with people that have been to where you want to be, right? And seek that information. So
yep.
And then becomes a relationship, right? It's like, you can't just get everything you need in an hour. People got a ton of value here in 2 hours, but it'll get them a little bit further, and you got to keep putting it together really throughout, your whole investing career. So
for sure. And one more thing I'll mention before we get to our last question here. When talking about finding the money, right? Whether that's having a joint venture partner or doing what we do is mostly just private lenders, right? Something that is more up here is getting over the nerves of asking people for money. I think that holds more people back from investing than, the knowledge of investing. It's more so those own limitations, like nervous about asking your uncle that has lots of money, hey, would you like to invest with me? Stop thinking about what's in it for you, right? You're asking them so that you can get a property going, you can start as an investor. Start thinking about what's in it for them. They're going to be making, if they're going to be a private lender for you, they're going to be making far more interest on their money than if it's sitting in a bank or sitting in a HELOC or whatever, right? So start thinking about what's in it for them. And really, you'd be doing someone a disservice if you didn't offer them the opportunity to work with you as an investor. Does that make sense?
And if you guys want to see how we package our deals, you can just send me an email, mark.loeffler@kw.com. I'll put you on our mailing list when we put out a deal. And like, go ahead and steal that, how we do it. We stole it off somebody else. I mean, we asked permission, they gave it to us, and we made it better and then gave it back to them. But yeah, I mean, definitely use it, right? Like that's what this is all about. I don't care. I can't buy all the deals out there, and I kind of don't want to anyways, right? So.
Absolutely. Say, Mark, can you put your email in the chat just so that they can see that? That's one thing I love about Onria, and one thing I really love about our community and the people that we've connected with, the experts like yourself, Mark, and Kyle that we bring in to chat, is it's a very sharing community, right? Like you have to have this abundance mindset, not I can't tell anyone about what I'm doing because I might not get all the deals. Like Mark said, there's so many deals out there. Like really, if we can help each other kind of reach each other's goals, what does that say? You're going to get what you want when you help enough people get what they want, right? And that's so
More
true.
people you help get what they want, the quicker you'll get what you want.
Exactly. I butchered it, but you know what I'm trying to say. All right, last question here before we head out for the night. Alvin, Alvin's out on the East Coast. Alvin, what's the best source of info to learn cap rates on valuing multi-unit buildings?
So the best way to do it is, so number one is you can go on realtor.ca or whatever, and you can find buildings to start analyzing. But then you're going to find out who those realtors are that are putting those out there, and you're basically going to talk to them. And then you're going to ask them for recommendations for people they use and which banks they use. And then you're going to go talk to the bankers who are financing these deals and basically ask them, hey, I'm going to buy something, I'm going to add value. What's the refinance, the takeout cap rate that you're going to give me? And you're just going to start analyzing deals and looking at deals all over the place. And that's how you're going to figure out cap rates in different areas. Because you're going to become the expert in that area. And that's why people are going to invest with you.
Excellent. Corey, did you have anything else? Any other questions or anything you wanted to chat with Mark about?
There's just one thing there. There's an anonymous attendee that's.
Oh, was there another one? Did I miss it?
Yeah, I just want to cover that. So what's the difference between private money as opposed to getting lending? So you're probably getting lending from an A lender, but you're getting private for the down payment and rental. Is that correct for the most part? Jen?
Oh, sorry. What did you say?
So the benefit of getting private money as opposed to financial institution. I'm saying that you're probably getting financial money and then you're putting private to close it and to do the renovations, correct? So you're doing deals with none of your own money, but you're not joint venturing. You're just paying a percentage interest rate. And then you're getting your 75, 80% first mortgage or whatever that is. And then you're doing your flip or your BRRRR and you're paying them out.
Yes, we don't enjoy doing joint ventures because Shawn likes to have full control. He wants to know what's going on with the deal, what he's going to do next. You know, this is his deal. So he's more than happy to pay a great percentage to a private lender so that he can keep that control in-house rather than having to say, hey, is it okay if we do this to a joint venture partner? Was that the question? Sorry, I missed that question.
Yeah, that was a question. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Oh, Ali says his question or her, sorry, what question wasn't answered? Maybe I skipped. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Here we go. What do you think of building a fourplex rental in St. Catharines? So do you have land and you're wondering what sort of property to build on it, or? Yes.
So again, I'm basically going to look at it and say, okay, what's my land cost? What's my cost to build? And then what's my number one, what's it going to be worth after? And then is that property going to cash flow? And yes, St. Catharines is not very easy to work with as a city, but I do know people out there who are buying like a duplex with extra land and they're building a couple semis on it and they're keeping them as rentals. So people are doing it out there. And again, if it's tougher to do things out there, then, you know, if you can make that work, you're going to probably be able to make more money than in the spot where it's easy to do the work too, right? So it's running that numbers, figuring out the after repair value. So the difference between a fourplex and a 20 unit is I can say, okay, cap rate for a brand new building in St. Catharines is probably going to be a 4%. So I can run my numbers based on my income and expense and my NOI. Fourplexes, I'm going to have to look for a brand new fourplex to compare my property to. So I'm going to look for turnkey fourplexes. Maybe they're going for 700,000. I'm saying, okay, maybe the bank's going to give me a bit of a lift on that. It's going to be worth 8 or 9. But it gets tough in the residential world. People are doing it. Don't get me wrong. People are doing it. It's just tougher if there's no comps. So if you have comps, then you're laughing.
Awesome. All right. Well, it is, and now 9:15. We've run over yet again. So my apologies for keeping everyone a little bit later. But I think that was a jam-packed evening of information from Kyle and Chelsea and Mark. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and don't go away because we're not quite done yet. So I want to mention again, a big thank you to our speakers and also to Corey for joining us tonight and helping me. I talked so much. I really didn't let you talk too much, Corey. I'm sorry. I'm used to Shawn sitting here not saying anything.
I'm gonna add, you know, guys, use these speakers for inspiration. You're not going to get to anybody's level overnight. Like, we've got decades of experience here, but it will show you what's possible. And, you know, I think the underlying theme here is, like, the deals won't just fall in your lap. Like, you got to actively go out there and work this like a part-time side hustle. I did that for many, many years, and it's something that I encourage everybody to do. Go do 100, go analyze 100 deals, because, you know, 4% of all things are going to be amazing. And, you know, even Mark was like, hey, he's going to put in 7 offers and get 1. So it's how it works. And when people think that, oh, I gave it a couple shots and it didn't work out, like, don't just self-select out like that. I mean, get in there and do a lot, and don't get too attached to each one. Just go, hey, every no just gets me closer to a yes. It's so important.
I am just going to say this, though. I'm just hoping it's not like Hamilton was, when I was buying out there and I was looking at 10 properties and buying 1 or 2 or 3, when who knew we should have just bought all 10.
Yeah. Well, to go off of what Corey was saying, I want you guys to mark down on the calendar Wednesday, June 16th. Get out your phone, if that's where you record things, and open up your calendar and mark down Wednesday, June 16th, because that's 2 things are happening. Number 1, that is the next date of our ONRIA event. And I'll have the registration for that coming out shortly. But also, that is the day where I would love for you to be able to share in the chat what action you took over the past 30 days from today's date. So don't let this opportunity go by without you doing something to move your business forward, whether that be putting in offers, whether it just be analyzing, like Mark said, just go analyze a bunch of properties. Maybe you're going to place some offers. Maybe you're going to try and do a refinance. Maybe you're going to start talking to people about investing with you. Start educating people about how they can be getting a better return on their money by investing with you in real estate. Okay. So these are all things that you can be doing to move your business forward. Wednesday, June the 16th. We will be having, should I mention who one of our speakers are for next month? Yes, no, I won't. I'll put it out in the email that's coming out, because I want a huge open rate for that email. So check out the email that'll be coming from me. We're going to, like I said, this is being recorded, so we will be putting this on our YouTube channel. So something else, if you still have your notes open, make sure you write down, subscribe to the Ontario Real Estate Investors Association YouTube channel, as well as Mark Loeffler, the Mark Loeffler Experience. Those are things that you need to be doing. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell. I think those are all the things that you do on YouTube.
Make sure you watch all the videos back. That's how you're going to learn.
Yes, absolutely.
That could be a win.
Absolutely.
We got lots of time because we're all just locked in, right? So
that's right. That's right. And, you know, while you're on those YouTube pages or channels, yeah, take a look back. There's lots of content on there. So make sure you do that. What am I missing here, Corey? Am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I mean, like your Facebook page, I guess, right? And stay in
Yeah.
touch with these guys, right? I mean, you know, Kyle's also in the lending space, and great people to have in your network. I've referred Kyle different times, and go book one of his rentals by all means, if he's not already booked up for the whole year.
Yeah. Absolutely. This, I mean, if you haven't connected to all of the people that you've seen talk tonight, if you haven't reached out to either follow them on Instagram or do a friend request, like, this is your invitation. Go ahead and do that. Go and look at people's names in the chat. These are other people that have the same mindset or a similar mindset to you that want to be doing the things that you're doing. Connect with those people. This is your opportunity. You know, you're not going to get any more of an invitation than this. So please make sure you are being proactive. You're going out there. We're all pretty friendly people. So make sure you go and connect with one another and help each other. That's the name of the game. The more you can help each other, the better. All right, I'm not going to take tonight up anymore. Thank you everyone for your time. Thanks again to our speakers, Kyle Ford, Mark Loeffler. Thanks again, Corey. And we will see everyone next month, Wednesday, June the 16th for Onria. Watch for that email that's coming out that will give you the registration details. All right, take care, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.